And there we are. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ghost Show. That, of course, the popular theme from the Ghost Show and the Temple of Funk. Yes. Well, joining me tonight is the godfather of the Banff family of podcasts, and the guy who has his hands in many wonderful projects for feigning games, and who has the full-time job of keeping me from doing stupid stuff. So this amazing human being, Mike Lafferty. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Nice to meet you. I'm like Joe Rogan. If he had 20 more IQ points, now it's 10% less funny. So nice to see everybody tonight.
And also joining us tonight, and somebody we're always love to have on the podcast, the amazing, the wonderful Lisa Morton. Hello, Lisa.
Hey.
And for those of us who may be joining us for the first time, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a writer, a nonfiction writer. I like to call myself a reformed screenwriter because at some point I realized the money wasn't worth it anymore. I have written 4 novels, about 100 and I think it's now up to like 160 short stories, a bunch of nonfiction books on things like ghost and Halloween and seances, and I've also co-edited a bunch of things with my friend Les Klinger. Our next book will be out in August, and it's called Haunted Tales: Classic Stories of Ghosts and the Supernatural.
All right, now if you will apologize, I'll apologize for what will be the first of many digressions. But I have to ask you though this, because I've just recently got into the wonderful world of you on social media. You are one of those people that actually makes me glad there's an internet rather than making me weep for the future of the species. And pardon me if I'm misstating this, but in the parlance of our times, you do some ghost hunting, do you not?
I do, yeah. It's been a little bit on hold over the last couple of years because of COVID, but things are starting to open up again. And I just did a little bit in Denver a couple of weeks ago. I was there to visit friends, and we had some really interesting stuff happen there.
Where I actually live in Denver. Where are you at?
Well, it was interesting. The first night I was there, we actually got an impromptu, spur of the moment ghost tour of the Wynkoop Brewing Company. It's supposed to be Colorado's oldest brew pub, and it's a massive historical building. It's like 4 stories with this incredible basement that's got bricked in tunnels. And I mean, you just look at it and you're like, oh yeah, it's haunted. And I got some very strange photos there that had those, I don't know what that is, kind of things going on. And then we took a tour the next night. We actually took one of the paranormal tours that walks you around like the historical area. Starts at the state capitol building and then goes past the Molly Brown house and ended at the Peabody Whitehead mansion, which is supposed to be one of the most haunted buildings in the world, and which made several people in our party immediately sick to stand in front of, which was really strange. Yeah. And a couple of us had our little 2 meters, which just happens to still be sitting on my desk. And those things fired off like rockets at that house. So that was a little bizarre.
The Peabody White House? Shoot,
the
okay.
Peabody Whitehead Mansion.
I'll pick that up.
Wow.
Yeah. Hunters and ghost adventures and all that kind of stuff, and it's a strange place for sure. It's one of those things where if you're a skeptic, you still got to figure there's something weird going on there to make these things fire off and to make people sick just standing in front of it. So.
That's interesting. Yeah, first thing another digression. Cheeseman Park in Denver. Has like 2,000 people buried there. It was a graveyard from, I want to say, the cholera epidemic. And at some point, the city fathers decided, hey, we need a park right there. So scrape off those tombstones and put them somewhere else. And, it's almost the plot for the movie Poltergeist, just the city park.
There's one that's even weirder than that here in LA. There is a high school that is kind of in the downtown area that's built on top of an old cemetery. And
Mhm.
when they put the high school in, they actually just left a bunch of the headstones in like the outdoor running track. So you're like a student at this high school and you're running headstones.
That is weird.
I'd be the teacher standing there going like, "Who's buried there? Last kid that smarted off to me." And my my brain is locked on the fact that there's a haunted state capitol and a haunted brew pub. It's like now I want to get a request card for the afterlife because I would have a definite preference there. Just, wow. Whew. Yeesh. Well,
Was a very
yeah.
interesting experience all the way around. I was there with two writer friends from Britain, and one of them is an extremely esteemed editor and writer named Stephen Jones, who has been around
Yes.
forever. Yeah, he's humongous. Not to be confused with Stephen Graham Jones, who also writes a lot of novels and so forth. But so there were four of us there. I was with my partner Ricky, who co-starred in Army of Darkness, among other things. And the woman, we've just finished our meal, and this woman comes to the table and she says, "Hey, how was your meal?" "Oh, it was great." "Well, my name is TJ, and I'm the general manager here. And I just wondered if you guys might like an impromptu ghost tour." And we're like,
Wow.
yeah. And and the tour was fantastic, and she was great. And Steve kept saying, "Why did you pick us of all the people that were in the restaurant?" And she kept saying, "I don't know." So even that circumstance was interesting.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And hey, listen, if you ever wander out to the DC area, it's like every inch of the land that I'm surrounded by is a Civil War battlefield. I'm sure we would probably get at least 2 novels out of that. So
I'm sure.
wow. Okay. All righty. So I do want to give you some time to talk about all your upcoming projects, but I want to talk about one that's close to my heart, and that is I am blessed to have you back for volume 2 of Everyone's Gone to the Movies, our volume on subversive sci-fi, and it's just it means so much to me to have a talented person like you writing for me, and then you came at me with a pitch for a classic bit of Japanese animation, and the essay is fabulous, of course, but just the amount of diversity that added to this book. I mean, it just greatly expanded a book that's already, we're getting into Bollywood sci-fi and the classic 70s dystopia all the way to like streaming classics these days. But it added such a wonderful layer to a diverse project. So yes, and well, why should I blather on about how great it is? Tell us about your film.
I chose Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind by Hayao Miyazaki, who is one of my favorite filmmakers. And even though he is primarily known, especially in the US, as just an animator and an animated filmmaker, I think he is one of the world's great filmmakers in any genre, in any form. I've been a huge fan for many, many years. And when I heard that you were doing a subversive sci-fi book, I thought about what would be really interesting to write about and what was something that was genuinely subversive. And after thinking about it for a while, I thought about Nausicaa, which was one of his first films after he did the Castle of Cagliostro, or Lupin 3 something something. So I think it is. Yeah, I forget what the full Japanese title is, but it's, I think, his second film. And it started as a graphic novel, and then it kind of got put aside for a while, and he made the feature, and then he came back to the graphic novel, which was interesting. But what I love about Nausicaa is that it completely flips one of science fiction's major tropes on its head, which is man's dominance over nature. And that is a really standard theme in science fiction, whether it's space travel where man figures out a way to go faster than the speed of light, or a dystopian novel where man has destroyed the earth or whatever. Well, man has destroyed the earth in Nausicaa, but it's in the past, and the earth is coming back and is stronger than anything that humanity has been able to do to it. And I love Miyazaki's notion of these like buried forests that are regenerating and are recreating themselves, and despite what the humans are still doing up on top of the surface of the planet. And I just thought it was so interesting and so like I said, truly subversive, that I had to write about it.
Yeah, I was reading it. It struck me as it even stands out in a long history of Japanese apocalyptic end of the world type stuff. I mean, everybody zeroes in on what a metaphor Godzilla, at least at the beginning, was. And they've continued that all the way up with stuff like the film that was known as Tidal Wave in America and The Last Wave, and but even if you're hip deep in Japanese post-apocalyptic stuff, this is coming at you from a different area. It's weird even among that subgenre.
And it's also weird even among anime. The science fiction anime, obviously the big ones known in this country are Akira and Ghost in the Shell, Metropolis, and it's nothing like any of those. It really does stand almost completely by itself. It bears more resemblance to later films of Miyazaki's, which often feature a young girl as a heroine. He loves that idea, and he's talked about why he loves putting young women in as his protagonist. And Nausicaa is kind of the first time he did that. Lupin is his first film is a famous thief who has run through many stories. So this was his first piece that was really his own, and it started that sort of thing he used over and over.
Yeah, and I love how you zeroed in on the female protagonist as a bit of groundbreaking just in and of itself.
Yeah, and by the way, let's set the record straight on one thing here, which often comes up with fans. She is not naked from the waist down, okay? Because he actually put her in like these flesh-colored leggings, and it's funny that there's an introduction to the graphic novel that explains all of the parts of her outfit.
Anime fans are just a different kind of cats, they really are. It reminds me, I finally got to see a 4K restoration of The Wicker Man, which is amazing on the one hand, but on the other one, you can tell that the ladies leaping over the fire aren't really naked; they're all wearing body stockings. And I'm like, I shouldn't be disappointed in this, but I am. Why I'm begrudging these women 50 years ago of actually having some warmth in this freezing Scottish winter, but it wrecked the illusion that I've had since I first saw it back in 1990 or whatever. So yes, the things we fans obsess over. Oh yeah. Well, I thought you did a fabulous job breaking it down, and I will pay you the ultimate compliment. I am not huge into that genre, and it did not affect my enjoyment of what you wrote the slightest. There's always a worry in general with writers when you dive into a subgenre like that if you're not into it, you're going to be lost. But it was fantastic. Just if you enjoy the moving pictures at all, I just thought it was a fabulous piece of writing. Very, 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 very user friendly, as they say.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, that was certainly one of my aims. And also, I truthfully am not the world's biggest anime or manga fan. I love Miyazaki. I love things like Akira, some of the other key movies out of the whole anime thing. But there's a lot of them. It's like I live with an anime fanatic. He watches everything. And half the time I just come in and I go, oh, it's the guy doing the same thing over again. Some of the animation looks like so Miyazaki is just godlike for me.
Yeah, I having put my wife through more than a few cult films. It's just I imagine she's sitting on the couch watching a disc go in, thinking like, yeah, another evening where we're gonna meet people and then see their internal organs in about 5 minutes. So yeah. How about you, Mike? We've never talked about. Are you a big anime guy?
I've tried a couple times. Studio Ghibli. Am I saying it right, Lisa?
I've heard
Yeah.
it both ways. I'm truthfully not even sure, but
Yeah, I mean, Princess Mononoke and oh god, why am I blanking? Howl's Moving Castle, and there's a few
yeah.
others. Just great films. I mean, but when I get away from that stuff and into some of the regular non-Studio Ghibli anime, there are some anime conventions I have trouble getting past. I don't need to run them down right now. I think you know what I mean. Although I had a coworker back in the day at Raytheon who would have a regular anime night at his house, and that's what introduced me to Avatar, which you could probably argue isn't really anime. It's made, not in Japan, but that was great stuff. Or it's say anime adjacent, maybe.
Yeah.
So that's about as far as I've gotten with that. There are bits and pieces here and there that I love, but once you start getting into the stuff that, well, I mean, I'm sure everyone's got their weird anime story, right? Occasionally I would go over for anime night and I'd be like, what are you guys watching? Why? I think you can, I feel creepy watching this, guys. What is this? Creepy stuff is just there because you noticed it. No, it was there. I don't know. There was one piece I remember watching. It stuck with me. I forget the title, but this girl had a camera that was her weapon, and she was being chased through the sewers by this horrible monster that was, a huge tongue lolling out of its mouth, going to do horrible things to her. And if she could just stop and take a picture of it, it would kill it or do damage to it. And it was weird and dreamlike and kind of uncomfortable. So I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling. Sorry, I'll stop now.
That's okay. That's okay. I think every genre has a film that you kind of hope that new people getting into it, they won't find that first.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and for that reason, anime is something I've always felt I needed a guide for.
Well, I will defer to Lisa because I think she's probably much better versed in this genre than either of us are.
Yes.
Well, I have to say, if you ever do a fantasy volume, I'm absolutely doing Miyazaki's My Neighbor Totoro, which is a movie that is one of my top 5 or 10 movies of any kind. And one of the things that amazes me about that movie is that it is like the most compelling movie ever made, and nothing happens in this movie. Nothing happens. It's about a family that moves to the Japanese countryside. Their mom is off in a hospital sick. The kids encounter some magical beings. And nothing happens. And it is incredibly exciting and compelling and fascinating. And so that, to me, that's like the ultimate subversive story, because it just does away with plot and characters and all that crap.
I have heard that movie cited as the counter argument to you have to have conflict in every movie.
Yeah, right.
And people will argue that there is conflict. I mean, there is drama in that. There are, but it's small slice of life kind of things. It's no one's saving the universe.
I mean, the conflict boils down to the 2 little kids in the family are having a hard time dealing with their mother's devastating illness. That's it. Mm-hmm. That is the conflict, and it's just an incredible movie. And I just love the fact that it just completely destroys every accepted rule of storytelling.
Well, I'm reading a lot about the new trend in animation for these conflict-free stories. Like Encanto is probably the best current example of that, and it'd be something if that does catch on, and then that's where you can trace the trend back to.
Interesting. I haven't seen Encanto, but now I want to.
I thought there was a lot of conflict in Encanto, but
well, in the sense that you don't have to have a villain per se.
Oh, yeah, I can see the argument there. I mean, I don't know if that was Pixar or Disney Animation, but I mean, it's kind of in the way that there's the antagonist is kind of the family itself or members of the family who are, yeah, I don't want to spoil Encanto for anyone who hasn't seen it, but actually Lisa had a really good idea about doing fantasy as volume 3.
I keep thinking about that for one particular reason. I sort of cut my podcasting teeth with my friends Ethan Parker, who is contributed an essay to volume 2. So I should give a shout out to Ethan, and Aaron Hoover and their podcast Confessions of a Movie Snob, because we would always do our personal top 10s in a particular genre. And they invited me on to do the fantasy show. And I was at a loss because, like, what do I do when I run out of Lord of the Rings films? And we sat down and we actually, it was one of those where I wish we could have broadcast the pre-show, because we actually had to have a talk about what are the rules of a fantasy movie. And we opted to roll with any film that involves the supernatural and is not primarily designed to scare the audience. So we rolled with that, and I broke the podcast by going with Pulp Fiction as my number 1 choice.
Well, you're right, though. There is a supernatural MacGuffin that, that's what's in the suitcase.
Yeah, it's all driven by the fact that John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson survive a shooting that should clearly have killed them both, and the fact that the one character who has a genuine spiritual repentance survives yet another scrape and goes on and lives his life, and the one who refuses to acknowledge a higher power winds up getting killed on the toilet. And I broke the podcast.
Well, the fantasy volume now just for that essay.
I have kind of written a rough draft of it. Yeah. I'm torn between that and doing maybe just completely opening it up and saying the weirdest movie we've ever seen. And because there are so many films worth talking about, but they would be hard to spin into a whole book. Because I feel like at some point we should do a book that extols the virtues of Phantom of the Paradise to people that don't know about it. But how would you do that? I mean, do we do a whole book of musicals? I don't know, but a book, in a way, kind of like the old Golden Turkey Awards, like weirdest musical, weirdest Western, weirdest movie about people stuck in an elevator, maybe something along those lines.
I have 2 thoughts. The first one is we could do smaller volumes, zine-size volumes, if you will, just to kind of get the brand out there. And, hey, here's 4 interesting essays about musicals. Because I don't know if we're going to get 20 people who want to write about musicals.
Yeah.
First idea. Second idea, I think horror movies, sci-fi movies, and fantasy movies are fertile fields where there's a lot to be talked about there, a lot to be written about there. So I wouldn't, if you wanted to do volume 3 or 4, going back to horror movies, I think that'd be a fine idea. Although I'm liking the fantasy idea the more we think about it.
Well, it's a definite possibility. I'm thinking that when this one funds, maybe part of our backer content should be, asking the people that made 2 possible, what would you like to see in 3? They may hit us with something we haven't thought of.
But especially if we're sticking with the subversive angle, so much weird 80s fantasy. Yes.
Well, it's a loose enough spine to hang some very good writing on. If these days, I think writing kind of there's so much writing in general out. I think it kind of needs to justify its own existence to some point. And I love this series because it gives us an opportunity to curate a bit. That was maybe the advantage of growing up with 3 stations and whatever you got when cable appeared. There was all this material out there, but there was curation for it. I was blessed to grow up at a time when you could still see black and white movies on free TV, and there's just so much good stuff out there getting swamped by the sheer volume of media out there. And if I can do something that helps turn people on to some things that are outstanding, even for their own weirdness, I feel really good about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actually, a volume on animated films would be interesting if you could get people to stray from the Disney and Pixar thing. There's a lot of great, interesting worldwide animated stuff going on.
I think we should do that if for no other reason than I want someone to explain Ralph Bakshi's Wizards to me. Because I'm not sure what's going on there.
I'm aging into Avatar. I am becoming like the tenured version of Avatar, basically. So yes, I could definitely nail that one.
But yeah, Fire and Ice. I'd almost want to see a BTS kind of essay on that just to see, because like it seems like they were going for something else than what they got once it finally came out. You know what I'm talking about?
You stumped me, actually.
I
Really?
vaguely recall seeing it many, many decades ago.
Okay, trying. Okay, who was?
I'm building up a similar category myself, so I sympathize there.
Okay, so it was Ralph once again. Ralph Bakshi, like
Yes.
and produced by Frank Frazetta.
Oh.
And I feel,
Yeah,
if you ever saw the Death Dealer piece he did,
right.
that's
Yeah.
a character in there.
And what's the poster? It was the poster too.
Yeah, yeah, and it's it's a very there's no plot articulated. Things happen. The action moves along. No one ever stops and gives you a huge exposition dump like you usually get in fantasy. I mean, it's cool. It just seems like when you're watching Quadrophenia from The Who, or you can kind of see what they're going for, and there's some interesting ideas there, but it doesn't seem like it ever quite pays off the way they wanted it to. So it's one of those ones like to see, the making of. Anyway, sorry, but yeah, animation could be another. There's lots of interesting things I'd like to hear. Actually, I could just do a whole bunch of essays about Ralph Bakshi, but I might be the entire audience for that is just me. So.
Our frequent guest Sean Vieira, and hello Sean, piped in with Wizards is basically an old school D&D campaign.
Yeah, I would accept that.
Oh yeah, I guess the sequel would be when somebody gets deities and demigods, and you're just flipping through, figuring out how you're going to kill the various gods and steal their stuff.
Whenever you give something hit points, someone's going to kill it.
Oh yeah,
It's a solid game design rule.
Yeah, gamers definitely invented if it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would go for a book of essays just about weird 70s Saturday morning children's entertainment.
Well, that's another interesting thing is one of the ideas I got when I was just sitting down brainstorming, which is basically what I do during standardized testing season, is I was thinking, with so many complete series available to stream now, maybe at some point for everybody to argue why this is the series you need to watch from start to finish, because we're at an age now when it's like all of the there's so many fundamentals of sci-fi, like this, like 60s Star Trek. It's just something you assumed everybody watched, is something that I'm having to explain to people, and that's something I wasn't prepared for. But and given the obscure knowledge and tastes of some of my writers, I'm thinking that might be a very fruitful project. And if you're thinking that's another excuse for McGee to talk about Blake Seven, yeah, pretty much. So, yes. How about you, Lisa? What just hypothetically, if we were to advocate for a TV series, do you have does something immediately pop to mind?
Yes, and it's something that aired on Netflix about 2 years ago, and it's a French horror series called Marianne.
Ooh.
And it is the scariest damn thing ever made. And it's really unfortunate. It's insanely good. It's well, just to give you a quick idea of what the plot is, because you probably immediately understand why I personally would love this show so much. It's about a male horror writer who, I love it. and who is far hipper than I am, though. And she is dealing with the fact that her monster that has run through a series of books she's written seems to have come to life.
Ooh.
And it takes her back to her hands, and it is incredibly well made. It's beautifully acted and very, very scary. And it's one of those things that for some reason no one saw it on Netflix, so they didn't pick it up for a second season, which is too bad because it ends on an awesome cliffhanger. But
no.
And a lot of people don't like to watch subtitled things, which is unfortunate. But everybody who saw this was like, holy crap, that thing scared the daylights out of me. It's really, really good. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on just under the surface of it. So.
Yeah, I like that. Like that could be my favorite obscure subgenre now. Movies that are extra terrifying if you're a writer.
Yeah.
It's like if it's like tell me you're a writer without telling me you're a writer. It's like what's your favorite Coen Brothers film? If you get Barton Fink, you know that person is a writer.
Right.
They know the stark, cold, dripping sweat terror of a deadline. And and having done my version of a Wallace Beery wrestling picture for the game industry, it's a film I identify with too much. Oh, well, we've crossed the 30-minute line here, and I wanted to give Lisa a chance here before we sign off tonight and talk about, like, I know that you're working on other cool stuff. Would you like to tell people about other cool stuff that you have coming out?
I have a story coming out in an anthology that is due for release next month called Classic Monsters Unleashed. The idea with this anthology was that every writer took a classic monster and did a sort of revamping of it. I took the Headless Horseman, so yes, there is involved, my favorite holiday. And then I have Haunted Tales coming out in August, and I am working right now on the biggest book I have ever done, and unfortunately I can't tell anyone what it is yet. But it's a massive coffee table art book. It's been so fun to work through, and I cannot wait to reveal what it is. So.
It's all selfies, right? Doing the 21st century thing, right?
Not my favorite subject, no.
Okay, but we must acknowledge you have the world's coolest tattoo.
I do. I don't know if you can see.
Yes.
It. There we go. Yeah.
Yes. That there you go. That is such a piece of the soul of all my favorite people right there. That is so awesome.
And I have to give props to my artist, Greg Chapman, on that. He's a fabulous Australian author and artist who designed that for me, and that's my little Halloween logo.
So he's a writer and a tattoo artist.
Yeah, he's incredible. Kind of disgusting. Yeah.
If life is a game, some people clearly got a better character sheet than I did.
Right.
All righty. And Mike, I know you, as usual, another busy week on the Banff family of podcasts.
Yes. Tomorrow at Noon Mountain, we are doing another playtest of the Marvel Multiverse RPG. Noon Mountain, and it's a playtest doc, so don't tear it apart too hard. But it's been fun. We're doing that at noon. Thursday at noon, we are doing another session of Darren Drader, former Wizards of the Coast alum, running his Reign of Discordia Sci-Fi session for us. It's one of our lunchtime hour-long demo sessions, so it should be fun.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. And before we leave, extra special thanks to everybody that has backed Subversive Sci-Fi, that has tweeted, retweeted, retweeted. I don't actually understand how the whole tweeting thing works, or who has shared or has spoken to a friend or interrupted a local government meeting. Not that I'm necessarily encouraging that behavior, but yes, but anybody who's supported the project in any way, it's off to an unbelievable start. I have yet to have the customary mid-campaign nervous breakdown, and that's an amazing gift to anybody doing a Kickstarter. So thank you all for supporting it and for saving my rather delicate over 50 constitution. And for those of you that would like to back the project, I just dropped the link into the chat, so that should show up in the comments. Yes, this is the one and only time you should read the comments, because it tells you how to get to this project and to see the amazing stuff that all my amazing writers are doing. And so, yes, so thank you so much to those of you that allow us to keep doing what we're doing, to provide, I think, some of the best writing being done today, and provide a venue where writers get treated like the rock stars they are and not beaten like government mules, which is becoming way, way, way too common in the publishing business, but never at Ghost Show. And a special thank you to the people that are just donating with no reward, just because they like the philosophy of what we are doing. And that's a literal gift in maybe not the greatest economic times that have ever existed. Don't want to drift into politics because that's my day job. But yes, but thank you all, backers and supporters and creators and business partners and the wonderful people that keep me upright and functioning and kickstarting. So thank you all. All righty. Well, anything else before we say goodnight?
I'd like to encourage everyone to share the Kickstarter, as Chris said. Or if you don't like to do social media, get a Sharpie, go to your favorite public bathroom, and just write the URL on the stall door or above the urinals. We're not picky. Either one's fine. And spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your mom. Father's Day is coming up.
Yes.
Like sci-fi movies, he would love this book.
Yes, I just saw the Warriors in 4K. So yes, spray paint. Yes. Alrighty. And Lisa, thanks for coming tonight and for sharing all the awesome stuff that you're doing.
Hey, thanks for having me. I always love chatting with you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, we have a special Ghost Show coming up midweek on June the 8th, which, if memory serves, is Wednesday. Yes, and that'll be happening at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or 2000 BST for those of you in UK or UK adjacent. And we're doing that with the not so subtle secret agenda of having all of our UK and Ireland based writers on for a podcast. So it looks like we will have a good turnout amongst all of our Irish and British writers, and anybody else who's welcome to be there. And most of all, we would love to see you there, because you'll have me and some much superior accents. So yes, so you don't want to miss that. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you on Wednesday and then next Sunday on the Ghost Show. Good night, everybody. Thank you.